Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to a new episode of codeLive. I'm PhilippeOzil. I'm a developer advocate at Salesforce, and today we'll be talking about the newly released Agentforce Testing Center. So let me give you a bit of an introduction about what this is. Essentially, this is about being able to test Agentforce deployments, and we're going to see that in a live demo, as is the tradition for codeLives. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get started. There we go. All right, so I'm in an org, and notice one thing from the get-go. This is on a sandbox. For now, Agentforce Testing Center will be available to everybody who is using Agentforce. And one thing that I want to clarify from the start is that for now it's only on sandboxes. And this reminds me that I'm going to be talking about things that are going to be forward-looking statements. So I do have to show you this little slide there, which traditional wall of text, aka the forward-looking statement. What it means in short is that there are things that I'm going to talk about today that are not fully released. So please bear in mind that you should only purchase Salesforce products based on what is commercially available and publicly available. All right. This being said, I'm going to talk a bit about the roadmap. So this is particularly important that you bear in mind the forward-looking statement. All right, back to my org. So I was saying we're on a sandbox. And since I have enabled the feature, actually it will be enabled automatically, we have this new testing center item in the setup. So before I jump into what this does, I want to just explain a bit the rationale of having this testing center. So the thing is, when you create agents, you're going to be adding things like topics, adding instructions. Like for example, here we're using a Core Cloud sample app example. So this is using a number of actions, custom actions, and we have created a custom topic for or a special use case for Core Cloud, which is a fictitious resort, and we have created a customer service assistant with a set of custom classification, scope, and instructions. And we have also added to this topic a number of actions, both standard and custom. So, while this works fine, you can imagine that over time we'll be adding more and more actions, and we'll be tweaking the instructions to expand on the use case. And obviously, we can always test things here in the conversation preview. We can run tests manually, but this won't scale. So we need something to help us like scale and make sure that quality is always there, that the agent is able to answer our users' need, and that we don't need to fix anything. So here comes Agent Testing Center. This is precisely what this tool is supposed to do. It helps you to validate the reasoning of your agents and test that the instructions, the topics, everything is well configured. One thing that it doesn't do, and that's important to stress this out, is that the testing center is here to test the reasoning, but doesn't test it's not meant to test fully the execution of the actions. When you want to test the execution of actions, for example, custom actions like this one, the check whether or the generate personalized schedule, you'll have Apex tests and flow tests, which will complement the test scenario. Think of it as first testing at the unit level or at the action level with Apex or flow tests, and then testing the integration or testing the reasoning in the case of an agent with the testing center. Now that's it for the intro. Now let's really take a look at the testing center. So I'm going to go in there, and what you'll see here, actually I have already run a sample here, so let me just clear it out so we can start from a clean slate. The testing center allows you to define tests, and you can run them once, but you can also replay them and rerun them over time. And the goal of this is to obviously make sure that there's no degradation, no, I would say, no breaking changes when you deploy something new to Agentforce. So the way it goes is that you start by creating a new test here. You give it a name. So I'm just going to call it sample, just as I did before. I select one of my agents. Here I'm using the default agent, Copilot agent. I can provide a description. And lastly, that's the most important part, we need to provide a CSV file with our test case. If it's the first time we're doing it, we can grab a template, and this will give you a sample set of data and tests. In my case, I've already prepared some tests for our specific Coral Cloud use case. So I'm going to go directly in my spreadsheet here, which contains the tests in the expected CSV format. So let's talk about this format. There are 4 columns that are required in the test case file. The first one is utterance. It's a fancy word for just saying prompt. So essentially, everything that is going to be in those rows and cells are going to be the prompts that we're going to be testing. And then we're making 3 assertions. The first one is an assertion on the topic. So we're checking that the agent is going to be selecting this particular topic. This is our custom topic for the Coral Cloud use case. And then we provide a list of actions. We want to make sure the agent is going to be selecting these actions to get to the outcome. And finally, there's the fourth and final row of this spreadsheet, the expected response. This is also the third assertion we're making. We are describing the expected response. Now, one thing that is important in this data here is that the expected response is not a word-by-word check here. So if you're doing like Apex tests, when you do an expect, you would probably write down a strict word-by-word match with the outcome. But here we're actually using AI, so what you see in the expected response is going to be run in a prompt essentially, and it's going to be checked with AI against the actual result. So this is pretty useful because it allows us to save a lot of time, because we don't need to be super prescriptive about the expected response. Obviously, we can write more if we want to, but we can have some very short expected responses there. So that's the format of the file. Now, I want to focus on 2 things. We're testing only 2 actions in this test flow. We're not test cases. Obviously, we have a couple more actions that we could be testing. This is just for a demo right now. And even though we have only 2 actions, we have more prompts. The reason why we have those extra prompts is that we need to make tests for positive and negative scenarios. So we want to test the happy path. For example, this prompt here should lead us to the happy path. Generate a personalized schedule for Sophia Rodriguez. We have all the information we need. We have the name of the action, personalized schedule, and the name of the contact for which we are running the action. So this should give us the schedule. Now, however, I'm also testing for negative use cases. These 2 here are missing some important information. The second one here doesn't specify which contact we're talking about, and so you can see that the agent can find the right topic, but it won't be able to find the right action, and it will ask me for the contact information before moving forward. And finally, I've also made sure to add another test in which I try to use an unknown contact, and you'll see that in this case, it's a bit of maybe it's a bit misleading, but the agent won't even switch to the Coral Cloud special topic. It will use a general CRM topic and use the identify record by name action to try to identify our contact. And it will obviously fail to find the contact because it doesn't exist. Anyways, let's say that I'm happy with my tests. So what am I going to do next? Well, I'm going to take this and I'm going to download it as a CSV. And then I'm going to go back to the testing center. I'm going to upload the CSV file, our agent tests. All right. And then you can click save and run. So what happens behind the scenes now is that it's going to run all of my tests. There's a bit of think of parallel execution, so it'll go way faster than typing everything. And when I click on my tests, so here it's still pending. Let me reload. Still not. Let's try again. Wow, this is long. Well, you can see it's already giving me some answers. So let's do one final reloading. Hopefully it'll be over. There we go. So it took only 22 seconds to run all these prompts. And you can see there are some interesting metrics. I mentioned that we're testing 3 things. So there are 3 types of assertions that we're running against: topic assertions, action assertions, and response assertions. Now, the interesting part is here, really, when we scroll down, there is the test results for each and every test cases, and that's what we want to look at now. So The first thing is a recap of the prompt or the utterance. Then there's a comparison between the expected topic and the actual topic. And when these two matches, obviously the topic test does pass. Then if I move slightly to the side, you'll see that we have the other test, which is checking for the right actions. If these two matches, well, we have a pass. And finally, there is the expected response versus the actual outcome. So the actual outcome here, you can see it's a bit more verbose than the expected response. That is actually what the agent will output to the end user. And since I got a bit of help with AI, I was only required to write the expected response in a informal way. And it's going to be able to use AI to compare the expected response with the actual outcome, which is really, I think, a great time saver. So that's it. That's how you can run those tests. Now, obviously, you want to add more tests to increase your coverage. And what's really nice about this feature is that at any time, you can decide to rerun the tests and you can archive the test results. So let's say tomorrow I add maybe 3 or 4 more actions or change my prompt instructions. This will have an impact on my test results. So maybe I'm going to add an instruction that doesn't work well, or maybe I'm going to add other actions that the agent could be using instead of using the ones I'm selecting. And so this is why we're building these tests. Now here comes the forward-looking statement part. This is the initial release for the testing center. There are a lot of things that are in the works. One of them is the ability to generate the test data thanks to AI. So right now you see we have to create the CSV file and we have to populate every row and cell manually. And believe me, it takes a bit of time. I did this ahead of a stream because I didn't know how long it would take. And of course, I didn't get 100% coverage when I first ran it. I had some mistakes, like for example, this part here, the action failing, this was a bit misleading. I didn't expect it to not select the customer service assistant topic when failing to find the contact, but it does happen. And so I was able to fix my tests and then ensure that it will lead to the right outcome. So that's the first thing. The ability to generate this data, test data with AI, I think will be also a great time saver when we get to it. I think we'll still have the ability to fine tune it and tweak it manually, but at least we won't spend too much time filling this spreadsheet. And then the second thing, which is I think a bigger chapter, is that right now the testing experience is very disconnected from the DevOps process. You know, we have to go in testing center, we have to select our tests, we can run them from here, and that's fine for a small batch. But obviously, if you want to scale, you'll need the ability to trigger all of this programmatically. So the next step for this feature is probably to add APIs, and we'll be able to trigger tests from APIs. So meaning that we'll be able to call it out from a CI workflow after testing the deployment of our metadata artifacts. And the other thing that will be really nice is maybe even further down the road is the ability to call all of this from the Salesforce CLI. So as part of the CI workflow, you'll deploy your org metadata, you'll deploy everything like the custom actions, the topics, your agent configuration, and finally you'll be able to call your obviously your Apex tests and even your agent tests from this. That's really in a nutshell what Testing Center is about. It's not really complex, so I think everybody can really get their hands on. And the advantage of this is that it's available for everyone. It's not a specific feature. So as soon as you have Agentforce, you'll see this menu appearing when it's released in your setup menu. You'll see the Testing Center menu appear, and you'll be able to get started with your tests. So I know it's a bit of a short introduction. There's not a lot of complexity. I had scheduled this ahead, so I didn't know how long it would take, but I think it will be probably one of my shortest code lives. I'm going to be taking questions if you have any, and I'll try to the best of my ability to answer if you have any specific queries about the testing center. I know there's also another thing while you're entering questions, another thing that is on the roadmap but may be delivered in the future is the ability to provide context with variables as well. So that's not there yet. For now, it's just the prompt. but you can imagine that in the future you'll be able to add specific context when testing your agents. All right, any questions for me while we're here? Oh, sorry, someone had audio issues. Well, okay, good to hear that it's working for everyone. I'm seeing a lot of more fails on response, and I think the way the expected response is declared. So yes, sometimes there are some failures, and I think it boils down to the fact that the AI is not what we say called stochastic. So if you enter several times the same prompt, you'll get different outcome. But the goal of the testing center is really to reduce this amount of variance, I would say, to make it stable. And by tweaking really the topic instructions, the descriptions uh, of the action parameters and the action descriptions, you can really get to good results. Is there any template resource we can use to this kind of test or general utterances? So yes, what you can do is actually start from the template. When you create the new test, you can grab the template here, which provides some really basic examples. So I actually let me just import this in a spreadsheet so that we can see it. I'm going to add this as a new tab. And there we go. Let me upload that. And there we go. So you can see this is the default. So just really basic examples on basic queries. Obviously, this even won't work on your org if you don't have the right data. So for example, here it's using the Acme account or the global media account. And I tried to run this earlier and I had to create those records, or even the case here. So it's really basic. And as the feature will be released, I think we'll see more and more examples. And it should be coming up in the upcoming weeks. So it's going to be deployed in a patch. And I don't want to say anything wrong. I know that the team is hard at work making sure the deployment is going to go live. It was already supposed to go live earlier, but we had a moratorium earlier on Christmas time, so it's delayed. So it's really a matter of days now. The feature is ready. And since I'm talking about this, I think it's a good way to bring your attention to one key resource here that is going to help you really get the best out of this tool. It's really the post that my colleague Moet wrote recently. It's called Best Practices. Where is it? How to write effective natural language instructions for Agentforce. I think this year I'm going to paste this in our chats because this is really a key resource. Let me drop this in both YouTube and LinkedIn. This is really a key resource to help you write the instructions in a really well-formatted way. And you'll see that there are some specific tips about where to place instructions at the topic level, at the action level, what's the full use case of classification and scope. I know for a lot of people this is not always super clear, so I highly recommend to write this prompt. And obviously, once you set up your test, you will want to iterate on them to get the best. But that's really where the power of the testing center comes. Another question: what are the biggest testing gaps that I see in terms of Agentforce testing in general? Well, so this was missing really clearly. The ability to run prompts and automate this part was really missing. Now, once we have this tool, again, the next step is the ability to automate it. And I would say the ability to have AI suggest fixes. That's not yet even on the roadmap, but you can expect some fixed recommendations in the future. So as we add more functionality to this testing tool, whenever you have a failed test, you could imagine that the agent is able to tell you, okay, I saw that you had a failure in one of these test cases. should we add an extra instruction in the topic description so that it picks, for example, the right topic because it didn't select the topic you were expecting? So that's the kind of thing I think we'll see a lot more automation and a lot of suggestions by the AI. But really, I think this is one of the key areas where we could benefit from this. Another question, yes, great question about language. Right now, in the first version, the tests can only be written in English, but that is obviously on the roadmap since the agents support multiple languages. I know the team is working on implementing support for additional languages. So you can imagine in the future, you'll have the ability to specify the languages of your tests from the testing center. I can imagine something like a new field in there in the new test configuration to specify the language. That is definitely on the roadmap as well as the context variables. Great question. That is something that is not yet covered. Can we support multi-level prompts? So that is not yet taken care of. We only test single prompts. We don't test for conversations. So we won't be able to fully test when you have a prompt that is being enriched in multiple chat sessions. I mean, multiple entries in the same session. So the response here will be to just create one prompt with an incremental amount of information, because the way this works is that when you have a conversation with an agent, there is we call it a set of tokens which are enriched. So as you do back and forth with the agents, the context is getting enriched. So what you can do in the testing center is simply write the first prompt with very little information and make sure that the agent asks for more information, and you can iterate on this. Obviously, this is just the beginning, so maybe we'll come up with something else to test those cases. Next question, under which user context do these tests run? So for now, I was running the test for the default agent here, the default copilot in this sample here. You can already test agents for Service Cloud, so this will pick the Service Cloud account user that is tied to the agent. The idea is really to have something that is close to real life scenarios. And obviously, in the future, you'll probably be able to specify whether, for example, this is an authenticated user or unauthenticated user, especially in Experience Cloud deployments. I know this is something that the community has requested. Right now, you can do this with Testing Center. The only thing you can do in order to test is manually. I was sharing this in my previous codeLive. This isn't exactly the topic here, but we have something new here, the conversation preview, which lets you set the context. So here I'm not in a Service Cloud agent, but in a Service Cloud agent, you would be able to specify context, whether you're authenticated or not. Here, for example, I could be selecting a record page for an account, or et cetera, and change the language. So all of these things, which are part of the context, will be added to the testing center, but they're not there yet. It's too early for now. I see a question on billing, so I don't have the answer to that. I think this will be clarified when we release the feature. I don't know yet if they're going to be built in the same way that we're building actual agent interactions. So we'll have to get back to you on this one. And I'm pretty sure it will be documented when we release the feature. All I know for now is that it's not an extra SKU. It's part of the Agentforce offering, so everybody will have access to it. Let me quickly check if I answered questions. Good question. Is it only for testing Agentforce? Yes, you cannot test with this tool, with the testing center. You cannot test prompts from Prompt Builder, unfortunately. I think it's a good question because there's clearly a gap there. We should be able to test those prompts. Now, the good thing, the good news is that you can still you can still test the prompts on Prompt Builder with Apex. So you'll be able to call the Connect API and run tests programmatically. But obviously, it's not going to be super performant because it does take a lot of time on your Apex tests. But you have at least a solution to automate prompts from Prompt Builder for testing. Check, I see new comments coming up. Is there a site for official documentation for the testing center? I would assume it is coming up on the help.salesforce.com site as soon as the feature is enabled, because right now it was supposed to be enabled. As I mentioned, we're facing some delays. So as soon as we'll be releasing the tool, the help documentation will be there as well. Other question, can we retrieve the Agentforce responses through the API now, or will this be in Next.js? So this depends on, the answer to this is it depends on several things. For now, you can only get the interactions logged in the builder. When you look at the when you're in Agentforce Builder, or Agent Builder, I should say, you have the logs there, and these are something that you can query programmatically. I haven't checked for the regular agent. When you're using when you're working with Agentforce Service Agent, sorry, it's hard to say, the ASA, Agentforce Service Agent, you can indeed retrieve the conversation logs. And you can do this with a SOQL query and a call to the APIs to get the in-app messaging conversation elements. So yes, you can do this in this case, but I'm not sure you can do it with APIs for a regular employee agent. That's something we'd have to check. Now, in the future, we'll have also access to the Agentforce API, which will also allow us to trigger some prompts programmatically without even needing to access the agent builder or any kind of UI. So we'll have access to headless agent interactions. There's no date announced for this, but stay tuned for TDX because there's some content out there. And in particular, I'll be working with one of the product managers of the Agentforce API, and we'll be sharing more on the upcoming Agentforce API. All right, any other questions? I'll give you a few more seconds. I think we saw what I wanted to show you today. It was pretty short, but I think I made my point. So yeah. Any last call for questions? All right. I guess there are no questions. So stay tuned for the release. Again, it should be coming up in the next couple of days or weeks. Hope not too late. And I want to thank you all for attending today, and stay tuned for the next codeLive. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.